Greetings, fellow married people. This is Marriage Moment. I'm Jason. This is Renee. And we have been doing these videos, these Marriage Moment videos, since 2020. When the pandemic started, we decided let's put our voice out there for helping married people because we used to do a marriage retreat once a year and it was really good. We haven't done one since then. Maybe we should do another one. But in the meantime, we are just putting these videos out because we love our marriage. We love God's idea of marriage, and we want yours to be as good as it possibly can be. And so for the past 3 years, as we have done these videos, we have mentioned over and over, I lost track how many times, but we talk about the different seasons of marriage. That your marriage, wherever you are right now, just hang on, get through, or brace yourself, one of the two, because it's just a season. Just like the earth goes through seasons, so does your marriage. And so what we decided to do was look at a book called 4 Seasons of Marriage and actually just kind of jump in. And the question on the back is, which season of marriage are you in? Marriages are in a perpetual state of transition. Nothing stays the same.
Yeah.
We like for things to stay the same. We hate change. But reality is, if you're alive, if you're breathing, if you're interacting with a human being, it is constantly changing. And so you have to be aware of it. You have to embrace that. And you have to make the most of every season. So this book was written by Gary Chapman in 2005. So it's kind of an older book at this point. There's not a new version of it. He's the same guy who wrote the 5 Love Languages, which some of you are aware of. But today, let's kind of give an introduction and overview of what this book is about, and then we'll spend the next, I think, 8 weeks just kind of skimming these chapters and talking about the different seasons and what you do in each season.
Yeah, so
Does
we're
that
going to
right?
get more specific.
More specific.
Yeah.
That's a better way to say all of that I just said.
So this is a really good book. When we first heard about this whole concept of seasons in a marriage, I remember it making a lot of sense to us because you think about the seasons of the year. If it was always one season, that would actually be kind of boring.
We say we would love for it just to always be fall.
Yeah.
Or, I hate the winter. I wish it was always summer. Well, and then it's 110 degrees for 40 straight days,
Yeah.
and you're like, this is enough summer. So yeah, the variety is good.
Yeah.
And things that grow count on, they have to have a season.
Yes.
A season of growth, a season of rest, a season of preparation. All those things have to happen.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think it's God's design.
Of course.
The very beginning of this book talked about something really interesting that the author had, when he was getting his degree and learning all the things that he needed to learn, he was really interested in anthropology, so the study of people groups. And he said in his research that he did back then, and I think this is probably still true, that in almost all people groups, marriages are the building block of the society. It's what holds that society together and brings up good citizens. And so I thought that was really interesting.
It's almost as if it was designed to be that foundational thing that culture needs.
Yeah.
Almost like somebody knew what they were doing when they created marriage.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that just lends itself to what we've always been saying, that our marriage is our most valuable possession. It's the one thing that is so important to us that we hold great value in. And the little subtitle to this book is Secrets to a Lasting Marriage. So the author has been married for a very long time. When he wrote this book, he had been married for, I think, almost 40 years. So he knows a lot about it. He's researched a lot about it, and he's wanting to help us with having a lasting marriage. I think that should be a goal.
Yeah,
for us.
I struggle with that because I understand what he's saying, but when you read his book, anybody can have a marriage that lasts. If you're just stubborn enough, you
That's
can
true.
make it. If you're just strong-willed enough, you can make it. But the deeper you get into this book, the more you realize he's not talking about just grit your teeth and bear it and get to 60 years or 70 years. He wants us to experience a fulfilling, purposeful marriage
That's so true.
that lasts.
Yeah.
And so I think the goal of having a lasting marriage sounds nice, but I don't think it's the goal.
No.
I think the goal is to have a purposeful, fulfilling marriage, one that honors God.
Yeah.
And then if it lasts for 60 years, if you both lived that long, great, you didn't make it. But if one of you dies, well, you have to reboot. You're in a different season of life. So let's focus on building purposeful, God-honoring, fulfilling marriages that last.
I'm glad you clarified that, because that's so true. So at the beginning, he kind of starts this with that seasons in a marriage are going to come and go, that a marriage is a changing relationship. It's always changing, and that's actually a good thing. That's not a bad thing. We kind of think of change as bad, but it's actually good, like the seasons of the year. And he said, even though we're going to go through some hard seasons like fall and winter can be characterized as kind of difficult, each one of these seasons is going to hold a chance for health and happiness and for growth. So that's really important to remember, and that some of them have a little bit more challenge than the others, and that's normal. And so I think what's really good about just this whole concept is understanding that when you can look at your marriage when you're going through a hard time and understand that it may be a season that you're going through, and that means it's going to change eventually.
That's the value I think we pull from this, is just an awareness. Like sometimes you're just kind of analyzing your life or looking at your life or wondering why you're feeling a certain way, and you can't really put your finger on, there's something missing, or there's something wrong, or there's something that's not going right, but I can't figure it out. If you view specifically marriage through the lens of seasons, it's a lot easier to identify. Like when you're just not feeling it, it's a lot easier to identify and say, oh, you know what, this is just a season of winter, or this is a season of fall, or this is a season of spring and summer. The important thing is to recognize, embrace, and learn, and that's what this book's going to help us do.
Yeah, and he mentioned that most of the people that he counsels in his office for marriage are coming in a season of winter. And that's probably when most divorces happen, because they've gone into a season of winter, sometimes by choice, things that they've said and done and actions they've taken. But that was interesting that pretty much everybody he counsels is finding themselves in a season of winter. And we are going to talk about that on the next marriage moment. So just to kind of set the stage, set the foundation, I thought this was an interesting statement. He said, marriage is not simply just a relationship. It's not just another relationship in your life. It's actually a very intimate relationship, and it encompasses every aspect of your life. That's so
Very
true. And so because marriage is always changing, and it deals with our attitudes, our emotions, the way we treat each other, of course change is going to happen just in life in general. And I think this is such a key concept in just any relationship and anybody just individually. It's how you process and react or respond to changes that happen. That's what causes these seasons in our life.
100%, because sometimes life just happens. There's an illness, or there's a death, or there's a crisis. And the way you respond to that determines what kind of season you're about to enter. It's all about how we respond.
And that's exactly what he said at the very end of the first little introduction to this book, that the changes we face in life, the way we process and respond to those changes, create the seasons of marriage. And so sometimes, like you're saying, that change in life is something that we have no control over. It's just life. And then sometimes we create that change in our life, and sometimes it's not a bad thing, like we've decided to move somewhere else and change our job, or decided to have another child, or things that we choose that we have control over. It still changes. It makes a change in our life.
Dynamic changes.
So I think this whole concept, the reason why marriage really is so difficult sometimes is because it's not just one person reacting and responding and processing a change. It's two people reacting, responding, and processing a change. And
usually those two people in many ways are very, very different, as we've talked about the last 45 weeks or so, we're wired different, and so we respond different.
Yeah.
And so that our responses really do carry a lot of weight, and it makes it difficult because we're so different.
Right. So as we move forward from here, we're going to take at least a week, I think 2 weeks actually, on each season.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start with winter and just talk about what winter feels like in a marriage, and so they can figure out what season they're in, if it's winter right now and it's difficult. And then some of the things that they can do to adjust if they find themselves in that season, what they can do to help their marriage. So that's where we'll start next week.
That's coming up next week. We will identify the seasons, tell you what to learn, what the opportunities are, and then how to move on to a different season, right?
Yep.
All right, that's it. Thanks for taking the time to join us. I would suggest getting a copy of that, because there are some assessments in here that I've looked online, and they're not online anywhere. At least I'm not skilled enough to be a person who Googles and finds them. But there are some assessments in here that will really shed some light on where you are in your marriage. So if you're interested in diving in deeper than we're about to, get yourself a copy of that. It would be super helpful. All right, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. Bye.
Bye.